In this video, I will show you how you can share rich content, so like images, text, or even audio, to other apps using drag and drop in the multi-window mode. Hi guys, my name is Yannick Reis. I hope you're doing well and I welcome you to a new video. As you can see, we're here already in the multi-window mode. So we have two apps running. One is the share app and one is the receiver app. So one app shares some content, in this case text, and the other can receive text. When I now long click on this text, you can see that it appears here, and I can now drag it and drop it to the other app. And on drop, you can see that the text moves to the other app and displays. So let's see how we can enable our apps to share content and also to receive content. I'm here in the repository for those two apps we just saw. So we have one content receive app and also one content share app. The source code of this repository is linked down in the description. However, let's first dive into the content share app to see what we need to do to enable such content sharing using drag and drop. Here inside the content share app, you can see that we have a share content screen, and that is where the magic happens, because here we have our layout. You may already recognize it from the example I just showed you. So we have a simple column that contains a title, a divider, and also the text we actually want to share. But something is missing here, and that is how we can enable our text to be shared with other apps that have code implemented to receive rich content. With Jetpack Compose 1.6.0, it's quite easy to do that. We can simply use a modifier, and here we can say drag and drop source. With this modifier, we can say this composable, it doesn't need to be a text composable, should be draggable. And we can do that by saying we want to start sharing when the user long presses our text. For that, we can say detect gestures, and here we can override some stuff, but because we want to trigger it on long press, we also use the long press here. And if the user now long presses the text composable, this callback here will trigger. And then we can simply say start transfer. And as you can see, we now need to input a drag and drop transfer data. Now let's quickly create a small extension function on string, and we say to drag and drop data, and now we can instantiate drag and drop transfer data. And now we need to provide a clip data. You might already know it from other parts of Android. So when you, for example, copy text, it also gets saved in the clipboard. So let's say clip data, new plain text, because we have a plain text we want to share. And then we say as label, share text. And the text we want to share is in this case this, because we are at an extension function on the string. And as last part, we want to say for flags, view, drag, flag, global. And by that flag, we can enable dragging our content across Windows boundaries. However, be aware that if you want to share images, for example, and need to share a URI, then you need to use other flags. So if we quickly go into the flags here, you can see that we also have a drag flag global URI read, for example, that will allow other apps to read content from the sharing app. So now let's use this extension function, and we say to drag and drop data. And for the sharing part, that's already it. So here in the content receive app, we are in the receive content screen. And here you can see this UI looks pretty similar to the previous example. And that's because it's almost the same. We have a title, we have a divider, and also a text composable. What's different here is that we also have a view model, which passes down some text. And this text should be set dynamically by the content we receive from other apps. So how we do that? Once again with a simple modifier. And this modifier is this time not called drag and drop source, but drag and drop target. And as you can see, we have two input parameters. One is should start drag and drop, and the other the target parameter. Let's implement the first one. This function here now determines if we should start the drag and drop process. But how should we evaluate that? We should always think about what kind of content we want to support. In this case, we only want to support text content. And that's why we will check for the drag and drop event, and we will need to see if there is any kind of text content included. If so, we want to start the drag and drop process. So let's see. We have our start event here, and now we can say at the start event MIME types. And these MIME types can be, for example, text or image, video, audio, such things. And as I said, we want to check if any of those contents here or MIME types is equal to the text MIME type. If that is the case, we want to start the drag and drop process. So it's still underlined in red, and that is because we are missing the target parameter. And for the target parameter, we want to implement a simple interface, and that is of the type drag and drop target. So let's say target equals object drag and drop target. So now it's also underlined in red because we need to implement the on-drop event. If we go into the drag and drop target, we can see that there are also other events, but let's go to that in a second. First, we implement the on-drop event here. This event will be triggered when the user long clicks on our sharing app, starts the process, and then release his finger, and the content will be shared with our app. So in this case, we need to think about what we want to do with the shared content. In this case, we want to update our text parameter here. So let's pass it up the tree to the view model. Let's say here on drag and drop event received. And the parameter here is, of course, the drag and drop event. And now we can say here view model update text by clip data, because the event contains our text in the clip data we earlier saw in the other app, and our view model doesn't need the whole drag and drop event, solely the clip data. So we can say here to Android drag event, and then we can access the clip data. By the way, also other stuff like X and Y coordinates of the event, so where it occurred on the screen, and also action clip description and so on. But in this case, we only are interested in the clip data. Now let's create the member function inside the receive content view model. Let's put the function down here. So we saw that our sharing app shares only one text to our receiving app. However, maybe other apps share multiple content to our app. For that case, we want to sum up all the text received from this clip data and then update our received content state here. And now we can sum up the text saying shared text of the type string, and in parentheses, let's say 0 until clip data. And now we can simply say item count. So we have a range here from 0 until the item count. And that allows us to say map. Now we have here the index, can access the current clip data item by saying here get item at. We pass in the index, and then we receive the respective item at that position. And of course, a text can also be blank, but we don't want that. And that's why we also introduce a filter here, and we say item. And as you can see, we can already access the text here as a short sequence. And we say filter is not blank. Finally, we want to sum up the text, and that is quite easy by saying here join to string. And we also want to separate each item we received using a separator. So let's say \n for line break. And finally, let's once again check if shared text is not blank. Then we want to update our state here. So let's say here current copy, and the text is of course contained in a variable saying text. So we update it with our shared text. And by that we receive a clip data object here, iterate over the items, sum up the strings by a separator, and update our UI state. Now let's go back to the receive content screen. Now that we have our function here in place, let's also call it here from the on drop. And we just need to pass in the event. And as a result, we always say return true. Of course, you could also directly implement a logic for denying the content if it's blank, for example, but for the simple case, let's stick to that. But there's one small problem. How should a user know now that he can drag some content to our app? Because there's no visible indicator for that. If you quickly recall the example I showed you at the beginning of the video, we had a small rectangle that displays if the user starts dragging content from the sharing app. But before we proceed with the drag and drop in, let's correct two minor mistakes I accidentally made. So first, we want to check here starts with, and the MIME type for text is actually with the slash at the end. And the second one is in the receive content view model, because I missed that I didn't call here the text parameter directly. So now we can use the text here and check for if it's not blank, because previously we would concatenate the item to string, but that's not what we want. We want to have the text content. So sorry for that, but now we can proceed with the show drag and drop hint. So let's go back to the receive content screen, and we were just here with the show drag and drop hint. And now if it's true, we of course want to show a drag and drop hint. And if it's true, we of course want to show something to the user. So in this case, let's simply show a rounded rectangle. So we say if show drag and drop hint is true, then we can use a simple spacer, and we say fill max width. The height should be, for example, 200 dp. And then we just use a border modifier, and we can say here 2 dp for the width. And then for the color, we say material theme, of course, only if you have it in your project. It's color scheme, primary. And then for the shape, we can simply say rounded corner shape with 16 dp. And now we can finally try our implementation out. So let's start the content receive app as well as the content share app. Now here in the emulator, let's enable the multi-window mode. We say a split screen, select our other app, and now I can long click on the text. The sharing starts, and I drag the content to the other app, release, and as you can see, we updated our state and the text is showing in the drop your content down below section. And that is how you can easily implement content sharing using drag and drop using Jetpack Compose. Of course, this whole concept only works if many apps implement such content retrieval. So maybe you could think of where are some use cases in your specific app where you could allow sharing content or also receiving content from other apps. As already mentioned, this is not restricted to only text, but also to images, audio, and so on. But I think based on a simple example, you're also able to implement other cases. Do you already have some use cases in your mind where you could use such drag and drop sharing in your own app? Or do you think that's completely unnecessary? Let me know in the comments. As always, I hope you had some takeaways. Like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, activate the notification bell, and I hope to see you soon.